Hello everyone, this is Pojo, and I'm here today with a recording of something I should have recorded a long time ago, which is how to beat the campaign tutorial, The Empty Throne, the sort of final fight between the strangers. This is a two-part fight in which you're supposed to sort of be set up into a losing position in the second part of the fight, but with careful management of your resources, you can actually do pretty well in this fight and hold out for a significant period of time. Obviously, once you get to the card that you're supposed to play, you will play that card, and there isn't actually any choice in that matter, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about how to save and preserve resources and how to spend your health as a resource in order to sort of beat this fight and sort of predict what's going on with the fight. In addition, this one does require basically a little bit of sort of advanced reads. You do need to know what your opponent's going to play, or you have to have sort of an idea. It's not as complicated as it seems, and indeed you can make a lot of mistakes or a lot of sort of inopportune plays. As long as you make one particular play around like turn 3 of the second fight, you should be okay. So let's talk about how to beat it, and I'm just going to go ahead and play that round. Alright, so here we are up against the strangers as Caiaphas. Now, some initial stuff. Basically, we do want to establish the fire sigil first because that allows us to play the torch. And there is a thing that we can do here with the torch where we can save it for one turn, or save it until the last possible second. And the reason that we do this is that we are looking for the most opportune moment to play the spell. So right now, if we play the fire sigil, and I'm encountering some network issues with this fight for some reason. I'm not particularly sure why. There's no issue on my end as far as internet goes, but something to note. Okay, so with this, we are gonna play our fire sigil out. Now we can just play the torch. We can just throw it out. But there's no cost to us if we hold the torch until my opponent attacks, because I'll get another opportunity to play it then, because it's a fast spell. Now, by doing this, we not only increase the amount of choices that we get, but we also potentially get a better target for our spell. Now, in this case, it is correct to kill the 2-1, because the 3-2 doesn't do anything. Like, it's just, it's not a particularly useful card here. It is going to be a 2-2 if I kill this, which means that instead of preventing 2 damage, I prevent 3 damage, 1, 2, and 3. And then, of course, if my opponent plays more strangers, that prevents more damage as well. So the correct choice is, in fact, to torch this 2-1. And then it becomes my turn. All of my power refreshes, and of course we play Caiaphas's Might, which sets our max power to 10 and gives us a little bit more to play with. Oh, I don't actually remember the Steward of Prophecy. I think I might have ignored him in the last couple of games. Okay, so we go ahead and play Great Parliament here. And that gives us 2 units in addition to this Steward of Prophecy, which we will play down to silence a unit in his hand. There are a lot of good options here. I can silence the Grim Stranger, prevent a bunch of damage to my face, which is useful. I'm not so worried about the Forsworn or the Determined. So we silence the Grim, and then I end my turn. And I've got 12 damage established on the board. Now, the reason that we play the units first before the removal is we're trying to establish sort of a presence on board so that we have some actual stuff to trade with. Like, especially this Parliament. The Parliament is far more important than the Auric Runehammer, since it means that if my opponent does attack, I just get to block with my 4/4s, and I feel pretty good about life. I could have played Steward of Prophecy first to get a look at his hand, and that would have actually been a good idea. Okay, so Forsworn Stranger here is a 5/5 for each type of influence that it has. It's normally a 0/0, and with the Determined Stranger it gets +1/+1, so it becomes a 6/6. If we silence both of those units, then my opponent doesn't actually get to do anything with this 6/6. It becomes a -5, -5, and then it becomes a -1, -1, which means that it dies. Now, if I attack here, I will deal 8 damage over the face, and I will also get my Argenport Soldier to block with, which is not a bad idea. I think I actually am going to go for that. And I can play Argenport Soldier, or I can draw cards. Drawing cards is generally something we save for the last turn, but here it's a little bit power efficient. I think I'm going to go for the Argenport Soldier instead.
Proud to serve.
Like, Wisdom of the Elders means that we can draw stuff when we need it, which is always useful.
From on high we strike.
And now my opponent has 2 flyers here. Oh, I drew a lightning storm, which is a little bit different. We want to kill this one. And typically you draw your cards first. I'm just making a slight mistake here and not drawing first, since that would give me some better options, potentially. I picked up a Death Strike and a Twin Brood Sauropod, neither of which is particularly important here. If I want to attack, my opponent might block with the 3/3, which seems like a pretty good deal to me. I could double attack here and get the trade for the Soaring Stranger, and that seems like a pretty good deal as well. No trade. The 3/3 is gonna attack in next turn, but I've got the 4/4 to block, so we should feel pretty comfy with that.
We stand united.
Alright, just going for his war cry. I can live with that. Now at this point we have a lightning storm, so it seems pretty sensible to use it. Because once we do this, we're going to reset and we're going to get everything back. So I'll go ahead and storm. That allows me to attack in for 4. And this turned out a little differently than the last time I played it, which is totally fine, but we're still at 26 health. We've got the Auric Runehammer in hand, which is actually important, because if we hold onto this Runehammer, it is the one thing that doesn't get destroyed when the board resets.
Do you feel it?
What? What is this?
Come, let us begin again.
No, it cannot be.
Now you can win this game without the Auric Runehammer. It's not important to actually get it, but it's nice to sort of establish dominance, so... Alright. Now, my opponent is going to establish a Ruthless Stranger on the next turn, or a Determined Stranger, I'm not sure which. But if I play Throne Warden here, I will have extra armor on my Auric Runehammer, which means I can kick some butt, and leave him with only 3 strangers left. Now, this Lightning Storm gets a 4-for-1, and that seems really, really good, but my opponent still has 7 cards in hand, all of which are almost guaranteed to cost 2 or less. He might have a couple of 3-drops, but for the most part, we know that he's going to play more stuff. So what we want to do here is expend our own health as a resource. We're going to just kill the Quick Draw Stranger, so that his stuff doesn't have Quick Draw. If I want to obliterate one of these guys, that's okay. That would at least prevent some of the damage from coming in. But the main thing about that is that if I obliterate here, I might want to save the obliterate for a bigger target, like something like Determined Stranger or Forsworn Stranger. So we can just hold out here. If my opponent gets a Ruthless Stranger, then he gets 1 unit through anyways, regardless of whether or not I obliterate. So as a result, he's going to kill this 3/4 no matter what. So we're just going to take the hit, and I'm going to end my turn. Now, by saving the Lightning Storm, we get to see Mark of the Stranger come out. There's now a bunch of units on board. And we see a Deadly Stranger. There's the Huru.
We stand strong.
And there's the Ruthless.
Our memories give us strength.
And now we have 9 damage at my face. And I'm okay with taking 9. My first 10 or so health points are not as important as my last 10 or so health points. So, like, we can actually spend this just to keep our Throne Warden on board and use him as a resource later. So that'll set up nicely. And I just Lightning Storm. And if I want a Death Strike here, I certainly can. It seems just as good to attack for 4 here. My Throne Warden is, of course, always good on defense, but if I attack for 4 here, then I can actually push some damage, which is pretty cool. And we'll Stone Scar Maul as well. Kill this thing. There we go. We've got him to 16. Getting pretty close to lethal. Anyways, we're currently ahead. So, just sort of an example of how spending the Lightning Storm a turn late is really, really important. And pretty much no matter what other decisions you make, if you spend that Lightning Storm on the second turn that you can spend it, as opposed to the first, you are going to get, like, essentially the win. That's the main thing that you need to do.
Save us.
Now, this time around, we have the same sort of Forsworn Determined Stranger puzzle. So if we silence the Forsworn Stranger and Death Strike this guy, then that guy dies, and we feel pretty happy about life. I can't obliterate here, which is a good way to get some damage in. And I should stay defensive, but we're going to be a little fancy and attack in. And that'll actually get a double block, because my opponent is looking for the efficient blocks. So now I have no cards, but my opponent has no board. Alright, and the Stranger's getting flying is totally reasonable. We see the Quick Draw and the Grim, and we see the Felon Stranger.
We all change.
There's actually quite a bit of stuff here, but we get to draw our Crystallize. And that, of course, stuns for the turn. And the Crystallize is just like, once you get to the Crystallize, you've won the game, because Crystallize will stop all of his Strangers. And he'll play a few more, and then you'll get your Eternal Throne card. And there we go. Merciless Stranger sort of finishes off the set, but from here, we're looking pretty good. And we can just claim the throne and finish off the game. So, similar to... This is a concept that applies in Draft and in Ranked, but especially in Draft, where you have limited amount of removal, and you need to spend it very, very smartly, because card advantage is very key in that sort of setup. Basically, if you are capable of figuring out when your health is a resource, when your health is not important, as compared to, like, other cards that you can establish, then you can actually get yourself into a better position and have like more to use later on in the game. So that gives you a lot of extra bonuses, and that's really, really helpful for finishing off the campaign, as well as just in general to think about. So think about like when it is that you actually have health available to spend, sort of just like you would spend power, and consider just taking the hit. Because sometimes you can just sort of set up and use your cards a little bit more efficiently by biding your time. It's not true all the time. If the deck's really fast, if it's capable of killing you, if it gets just damage in, sometimes you might want to be very, very defensive. But in certain situations, it is good to hold on to those lightning storms, and that's the key lesson to sort of come away from with this particular tutorial match. So thank you for watching. I hope this helped, and feel free to like or subscribe if you liked the video. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.